What's up, homies? This is Luke here with Phil, and we got a guest today. We got Chance on here. If you watch the YouTube channel, you would have already seen a video with him. It'll be up sometime this week as well. Guys, what have you guys done today?
We have sat upstairs at the second living room, and we've watched Fast and Furious from 10 a.m. until it's now almost 7, I believe.
We've watched 1, 2, 4, 5. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Then
been a
we'll do
grind.
6.
And they're not short movies either.
Nope.
Which Fast and Furious movie is your favorite Fast and Furious?
5. The one we just watched, by far, for me.
That one's definitely the most entertaining, I think.
Yeah.
And then I still like 1 because it actually has like racing
I
with
agree.
the story.
If I had to pick one, I'd pick Tokyo Drift, but that's just because it was the first one I saw, and it's always just stuck with me. So,
Yeah.
that'd probably
Fair.
be.
That one has a lot of racing in it, too, which is cool.
Yeah, it does.
Who's your favorite character?
Han, by a mile. Han's cool.
I like Han.
And he scores Gal Gadot. Like, come on.
I think that I would have to go with Eva Mendes, even though she's only in one of them, just because she's smoking hot. But
Yeah.
a lot of people would say Dom is their favorite. Actually, no one would say that. But
Family.
Dom's favorite is family, and that is
Family.
That is what we're going to kind of be talking about on today's episode. Phil's going to have some questions for me and Chance. We definitely have some different things when it comes to fathers and things like that, and we're going to kind of get really in depth on how that affected our lives and our situations. So
We
go
all-
ahead and
we all-
start us off.
Yeah, we all kind of come from a different perspective. And again, we're going to get into that. We all have our own, like we all grew up with, and me and Chance a little more similar than Luke. Luke was a little bit different situation, but, we'll get into that. But I think we all have a good perspective, especially now that we're all, into adulthood by a good amount. Out of college, we kind of understand, what happened in our past and the differences now, now that we're all older. So really, I just kind of wanted to discuss, the importance of father figures, what you guys have experienced, what you guys have missed out on possibly, and I'll give my own perspective as well at some point, when it comes. But why don't we'll start with you, Luke. Why don't you go into what with your biological dad, where he was in your life, and then we'll go with Chance and just explain how your situations are different. For me personally, still have a father in my life, luckily, and very good dad. Grew up, he's very strict, but man, I'm very appreciative of it now. The values that he taught me, as well as my mom, but we're really going to touch on fathers today because we have such good perspectives. But I see it all come out now, like now that I'm into adulthood, into my professional life, like, and in relationships, in work, in social, life and everything. I see the good values that he instilled in me, and I now see why that is so important to have that figure in my life. And so very thankful. But Luke, what was your experience? You can just kind of give a good synopsis of it.
Yeah, so I grew up, my parents got divorced when I was 9, and my dad was one of those dads that was always involved, always you could tell that he loved me, you could tell he loved my sister, but always struggled with certain things. Alcohol was the biggest one, and so when my parents were 9, that is why they ended up getting divorced, because he just was losing the battle with alcoholism. And so me and my sister lived with him for probably about 6 months, because my mom had get a job and figure out what she was gonna do, because she had worked before they got divorced, but not full time. It was just kind of half in, half out. And whenever my dad worked, he did construction, so he would work for a week or two and then not work for a week or two, but he would make good money because it's construction in the city. So it kind of just evened out to where she just had to have a job to make sure there was some stable income, but not a whole lot. So she figured that out, and then she ended up getting married. Well, not right away, but she ended up finding Jason, who's now my stepdad, and they got married, and we moved down to Big Lake, which is an hour and a half from where I lived in Omaha. And so when that happened, my dad still tried to stay in contact, still tried to kind of be apart, but always had his issues, to the point it's all right, well, we would go up there and it's this isn't enjoyable. No, he wanted us to be there, but he wouldn't make the choices that were necessary to keep us there. So we're just okay, we're not going to do this anymore. When it got to the point where we were 12, and I was yeah, Mom, we're not going up there. That's not a healthy situation for anybody involved.
Yeah.
And so basically, just dealt with this struggle of it wasn't that he didn't love us, but like alcohol just made it like to the point where he made decisions where it's like, okay, we're not going to be there. We don't want to go there, and just kind of shoved us out of our lives on accident, out of his life on accident, by the choices he made. And really, that still kind of, that struggle still goes today. Like, he still tries to sometimes be a part of my life, but like still makes choices where it's like, okay, I don't want you in my life, because it's just like, it's just always painful in the end. Like, I always have to do something where I'm like, now I'm an adult, so it doesn't bother me near as much, but like as a kid, and I'll get into more stories after like Chance kind of, we get into it later. But whereas like I had to be the adult in the situation as opposed to where my father was the kid.
Yeah.
And that's really, as a kid, it was really stressful and really just like drove me nuts, honestly. So
Yeah, I can
that's
imagine.
probably that's the gist of my situation.
Okay. What about you, Chance?
Well, my situation is I had a very, very awesome dad, and I was thankful for it. I had him up until I was 16, and then I am coming home from, I think it would have been like swim practice or something, and then I get home and my mom's on the phone just bawling her eyes out, and I'm like, oh God, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
But I don't like to like interrupt my mom's phone calls and stuff like that, just because she hates it when that happens. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait. I'll ask her when she hangs up. She hangs up. She goes, your dad just died in a motorcycle crash. And I'm like, what? Just a random day. Random day. You never think it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part is it's not like I could have prepared for that.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And that's the way she told you too?
Yeah. Just straight up. And through the rest of that day, this was at like, I don't know, like 5 p.m., something like that, over the summer. And I'm 24 now, so it's been, what, 16, 24, 8 years?
Yeah.
All right? So, like, I've accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
I accepted it quite a few years ago, but it was hard.
Oh, I bet.
Through college, it was even still hard. Maybe, like, I started to really get, like, a grip on it, maybe senior year and then 5th year. But
yeah,
freshman, sophomore, junior, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was just like, because I know that there are things I was like doing in college, like drinking and partying or whatever. I know if I would have told my dad that, he would have been like, that's freaking sick, dude. That's so cool. Like, he's all for it. He's like, he just loved seeing me, my brother, and my sister, who are both of my older siblings, just happy.
Yeah.
Always wanted him to be happy. But if he needed to get on you, it's a one and done type of deal.
Just knowing you, I know that that's so true that he would just put the foot down.
Dude. No, it is a one and done situation. Do not make him repeat himself.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh God. But yeah, so trying to stay on, I wouldn't necessarily say like a good side, because it's your father. He's always going to be on your good side.
Yep.
But yeah. Never seeing him angry was a good sign.
Yeah, no, I understand that. My dad's the same way.
I made him mad a lot when I was a kid. Let me tell you. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So touching on the happiness side of thing and him being able to see you happy, and that's what made him happy, you and your siblings. Would you say, aside from having to deal with that, were you pretty happy throughout college and the years after? Like, obviously you had that struggle to deal with and work through, but were you happy, like, overall going through college and stuff after you passed?
I was very happy going through college. I would say I was never unhappy going through college, but I had unhappy moments.
Yeah, okay.
But moments never outweighed the whole situation at all.
Okay.
Because I had awesome friends like you. I had Josh. I had Samir. Mm-hmm. And then I had a couple really good friends that I'm still extremely close to in Peoria still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just like, dude, we're here anytime.
Yeah.
I had my friend Mike leave work to come, like, just hang out with me.
Yeah.
It was just a bad day.
Oh, yeah. I would say
that's
so.
That's the understatement of the year.
Yeah.
It was a bad day.
I bet.
It's not something that I wish upon anyone.
Yeah.
When your mom just told you straight up, do you think that was the best way to kind of convey that message, or do you think that...
I think it was.
Okay.
And I actually do. I think getting to... It's, obviously, there's no easy way to ever say it, but, like, I don't think sugarcoating it would have made me think any better. and just she's just like, it's. Since I'm 16, there's no reason for her to even lie to me. Like if I was 4 or 5 years old, all right, she probably could have said, "Your dad's gonna be away for a while" or something like that, like a usual kind of thing if someone passes away while you're a kid. But yeah, I think just straight up.
Yeah,
I kind of thought that would be the best way too. I just wanted to know from your perspective if you thought that was.
That's such a hard age too. Like, I mean, me personally, like when I was 16, I was so lost, and like having a dad there to always answer questions or help me with stuff.
He did buy my first car, and he bought half of the one that I have now.
Great guy.
Oh yeah.
But just that age is just miserable to deal with something like that, and that's just my imagination saying that. So I can only imagine.
I do think that you're actually like onto something psychologically, because you're just getting out of puberty, so you're kind of figuring out where the rest of your life is going to take you and making decisions on like, where am I going to college, what am I, and guidance in those moments is huge, and especially if you had a close relationship with your father, that probably would have been one of the first places you went when making those decisions, and just to lose that out of nowhere, like I can't imagine how tough that was.
What's awesome now is my friend Mike, his stepdad, is a pretty good father figure to me now.
Yeah.
Awesome. I absolutely love him. The rest of the family, they're all awesome people. I really couldn't be thankful for them more. Yeah. But I'd say I have a father figure in my life now.
That again, obviously having your actual father, I'm sure on some level is more, not you specifically, but saying in general, someone's upbringing, having your actual father there is probably better, of course. Right. But a father figure is still so much more important, and we see there's a new era now. You know, there's so many divorces, there's so many single mothers, and even a lot of single fathers too.
Especially after COVID situations and shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that's something that I really want to touch on is your guys' opinions on that father figure. Because, Luke, you didn't have that great father figure with your actual dad, and then you did with your stepdad much later on. So kind of want to touch on that, and what were the main things that you valued that father figure gave you, your stepdad Jason, that your actual dad wasn't able to give you? Like, what were the things where you look back now and you go, so glad I had the right person to teach me this, not the wrong person?
I think that there would be two things that would be just the most obvious answers in the world for me. Stability would be the first thing. Like, just having someone that was always there. You know, you could count on them being there, and it didn't matter. Like, so I'll go into one of my stories. So my sophomore year in high school, I was going to start my first game of basketball. And so I was like, you know what, like, I really wish my dad would be here. That'd be really cool. So I, called my grandpa, who we lived with at the time, and I was like, hey, like, I want you guys to come watch this game. Do you guys think you can make it? And they're like, yeah. It was just, like, my granddad was on oxygen, so he couldn't really go very far, but it was just close enough where, like, they could make it work. And so he's like, yeah, we can come to that one. Mm-hmm. So I was like, sweet, I'll see you there. And before the game, my dad got into a fight with one of the other parents that was like just literally just sitting there talking about his kid being good because
was he drunk?
My dad was, but
the
other dad was just talking about how good his kid was, and his kid was a stud. He was the best player on the team, no doubt, absolute stud athlete. And my dad was like, "Oh, he's not that good. My son's better." And I'm like, first of all, in my head, I'm like, no, I'm not.
This is my first game.
This is literally my first start ever. I'm probably not better. But anyways, so I literally actually had to go call my dad down and kick him out. So he didn't get to stay because he was so drunk.
On the court in front of everyone?
Yeah, in the stands. But yeah, basically in front of everyone. Like 20 minutes before the game. So I had to go. I was mentally prepared for my first start. It's already stressful. I have to go throw my dad out and then get back into playing a game somehow.
Yeah.
One of my best games ever. I don't know how that ended up happening.
At this time, was Jason in your life yet?
Yeah.
He was? Okay.
So I was only without Jason comparatively for 6 months or a year.
Okay.
It wasn't very long. But what I kind of touch on too is the second thing is a relationship with a woman. Seeing a positive relationship with my mom, because my dad and my mom were very toxic, just based on the nature of the relationship and my dad's behavior. So it was kind of like I just needed a good example of like how do you show someone you love them, and it not look like crap, and you not just be like an asshole and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, really important for me because growing up, like if that would have been the only example is my dad's relationship with my mom, I can't imagine the kind of like relationships I would be in now. Like it would be just toxic after toxic, and that would seem normal. And that is a lot of people's norms, and that's one big thing that we'll kind of touch on later in the episode. But when I was like 10 to probably like 14 or 15, I really pushed against accepting Jason as a father figure. So he was there, but like in my head, I was like, like no, he's not my dad. He's not my dad.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really big mistake, obviously, looking back, because I still had the example. So like I still know, like looking back, okay, like Jason was doing these things, and I can learn from them. But I really didn't like accept him as my father, which is who he had been for the last 5 years, anyways. Until I was like older, matured out of my like stage of, hey, being a brat basically is what I would call it.
Yeah.
I was one of the biggest assholes going through puberty. Like a lot of people say that, but like I actually was. Yeah, it was bad. I was not a good kid. But I shouldn't say that. I was a good kid, but I was
just a brat.
An asshole.
Yeah.
And so growing out of that and really accepting a father figure and leaning on that was probably a big turning point in my life where I'm like, okay, like I have someone here that can really show me how to live and live correctly, and I need to like just learn from that.
Yeah, I could see that. Like I know that a lot of people don't accept their step parents ever. Like that's just part of it. Even if they are much better for them. Like what got you to the point where you were finally like, oh, this guy, I need to like this is important for me. Like, did you ever hit that point where you're like, this is why I'm going to accept him?
I don't think it was like one specific moment. It was more just maturing out of thinking that I could do everything myself and not needing anyone. But also just seeing other people and having somewhat toxic step families and toxic step parents and things like that, and just really focusing on being like, I got so lucky here. Like, I have such an amazing guy that's a stepdad. And he had not been married. Married my mom, who had 2 kids. He had no kids. So he just hopped into a relationship, all of a sudden had 2 kids that were 11 and 9. So that would not be easy ages to just be like, yeah, I'm your dad now. Because they're both old enough to know who their real dad is, but not old enough to really like just be mature about the situation. So just we were overall very blessed that Jason came in and had the mindset that he did. And so, like, just kind of looking back on that throughout when I was old enough to really understand it, that's where I kind of just flipped the mindset. It's like, all right, like, this guy deserves to be respected, he deserves to be loved, and he deserves, like, for you to use him as a father figure like he's been for you the whole time anyways.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I got no perspective on that. But what I do know is like, with the lessons thing and kind of the stability that you were talking about, like why that's probably, and for me, I think that was extremely important for me too. Is I had a very chaotic, especially once I got to high school, which again for me was very formative years.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah. And so the structure that was there because of how chaotic my life was, just because I was so busy. It was nice that I did always have that person to ask questions, and I mean, me, I love to ask questions, but every single day I had issues to work through and stuff, and struggled a lot in high school, with friends and school and stuff, and that structure was there, and I still see that even now, like moving into my adult life. Like, I'm still very close with my dad. We talk almost every single day. We share memes, we share whatever's going on in our day. Like, I communicate with him and the rest of my
Instagram group chat with your dad.
You actually are. It's literally called Memes for Mr. Cadella.
It is.
It's a great group.
It's awesome. It's hilarious.
But anyways, I am very thankful because I do still have that structure. Like, all day, every day, if there's something going on in my life or something I want to talk to someone about, I will reach out to not only my dad and my brother and my mom too, but my dad is the main component there that I want to tell stuff to and stuff. And it is, I think, very important to even have in your adult life. So for you guys and Chance, because you don't have that, that's kind of what I wanted to touch on, have you adopted someone new? Or is there anyone? And like you said, you had a friend. Mike was his name.
Yeah.
Whose stepdad is pretty much yours too. That's what you were saying.
Oh yeah, he's truly awesome.
Going through college and stuff, did you have a point where you needed that structure and you didn't have it? Like, was there points where you're just like, who do I talk to about this? How do I solve this issue? I need a dad to talk to. Assume there's obviously some good answers there, but
see, okay, so there's kind of like a couple of answers I can kind of go with that. The one I would always like call or have to text and stuff like that would be my mom.
Yeah.
So thankfully,
and she's great.
She's awesome.
Yep.
She's like the nicest person in the world, but if you mess up one thing with her, she'll hate you forever. But if I didn't talk to her about anything like that, it was just me.
Yeah.
I easily could have talked to my brother, to my sister, obviously to my mom if I didn't in whatever situation. But a good amount of situations that made me very stressed out, anything like that, was on my own.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Plenty of issues. I was just like, well, I'm just fucked. Guess I'll just stay here.
Yeah, I got to deal with it.
I'll figure it out somehow. It's just how my dad did it. All right, my dad didn't go to college. He had his high school degree, and then he became a police officer, and then went through ranks. And I can't remember his last rank. He was a lieutenant of some sort, but I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I think the main situation that I called my mom on was junior year of college. I was just anger issues, big time.
Yeah.
There was a point. This is actually when I started calling my mom. To a point that I'm in my car, right outside of our house, talking to my mom, saying, "Mom, I'm just pissed off all the time. I'll be honest. I just left class because my pencil broke 2 times. And I slammed it on the table, packed up my bag, and left. And everyone just stared at me as I left. Just red face.
That only makes you more mad.
Just heated. And I'm like, I'm driving back to my house, and I'm just like, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Like it was an impulse of just pure anger for no reason. A pencil breaking.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm realizing that as I go home, I'm like, I've been getting angry just all the time. Like, I'm sick of being mad about everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, Mom, I don't know. So I just don't know.
Please.
Anything you can say is gonna help. And she did. She was a lot of help. We got like these little like mood boosters that are like natural type of medication. I feel like is a strong word because they're like natural stuff. It's not actual like
prescription
drugs.
Yeah.
Right. It's not actual like prescribed drugs. Like you just have to pick them up at a pharmacy, but any single person can get them.
Yeah.
And those definitely helped. I will actually say I still gradually take them, but very minimally now, which is awesome. But most of the situations I've ever been through, I was trying to figure out on my own. Because once my dad passed, I was like, guess I'm the man now.
Yep, lone wolf.
Guess I'm the man.
So, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but would all those situations have been better with your dad? Like
100%.
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah.
Easily. Because I know if you guys could have met my dad, he is me, just a little bit heftier. All right?
Fair
I'll
enough.
straight up say, loved lifting. All right,
Yep.
supported every single. Shouldn't say every single. All good endeavors that me, my sister, and my brother did. Supported it through and through. All right, and all the kind of complaining, it was mirrored exactly like him.
You do like to complain.
I complain a lot, dude. I complain a lot.
Like I said, you are the most opinionated person I have ever met. You have an opinion on literally what was it today? What was the thing that you?
It was ranch.
Yeah,
you were dipping your dino nuggets.
All right,
you're 24 years old. Dino nuggets. All right?
It's my cheat
you,
day, all right?
You had half a bottle of ranch with not even 10 chicken
Come
nuggets.
on, you're exaggerating. You're
No,
exaggerating.
no, fuck ranch.
Point-
It's so bad.
Point made. You listen how opinionated are about ranch.
When you're chucking the whole bottle on your plate, I'm staring at it, I was like, nasty.
Regardless. So, Luke, same question goes for you in college, which, I mean, by then we kind of get how to be on our own, and we sure learned quick. For me, especially once I got freshman year once I got out there, I was like, man, I got this as a breeze. But there were still things, of course, I would call home to Dad about. Yeah, definitely relationship stuff. I would still talk to my mom about stuff, and I am way more vocal with her more now. But definitely like with this, with girls and stuff, I talk to my dad and kind of get his advice, because I've saw how successful he was with my mom. They have a great marriage and have made it through a lot of issues and stuff, and raised me and Wes, and I know that is not easy. But so for you going through college, were you in the same boat? Would you kind of lone wolf it? I mean, I know you had Jason in your life. But...
No, I would say I very heavily leaned on my mom as
Okay.
well. Just like Chance, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that my mom was one of the best people on. Well, in my opinion, she's the best person on the planet. But everybody probably thinks that of certain people, so
yeah.
I'll just say one of the best.
Okay.
But she was amazing. Obviously, it's not the same. You do have conversations that you're like, I can't really have that with my mom. Like, not that it wouldn't be awkward with the dad either, but like, you like literally can't have it with your mom.
If it's a
like,
guy conversation,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
needs
yeah.
to be with another guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
So,
hard.
Like, and I did probably have, I talk about relationships a lot with my mom and things like that, of that nature. She does it for a living, so that did make it a little easier. Like, she talks to people about relationships all the time because of her job. So I was like, okay, well, she's used to talking to like people of both genders, so it's not, as awkward and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I leaned on her a lot. But I would go to Jason sometimes, if I had stuff where it was like really like. Basically, I would go to Jason if it was something I didn't want to bring up to my mom, and I just wanted it like an answer, and I wanted to do it behind my mom's back, kind of like. That sounds bad, but like that is kind of
No,
like
I know
things
exactly
like where I
what
didn't
you're
want to
saying.
admit it to my mom. I'm like, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
And then he'd do it, and then he probably told my mom like 5 minutes later. But at least I didn't have to tell my mom. So
That's true.
And there's situations that goes vice versa too. That like there's conversation I just talk to my mom and I'm like, do not tell that.
Yeah.
Just don't.
I agree. And I still have those conversations with both my parents too, of just like even issues with the other parent. Like, hey, why is dad or mom doing this? And so that still happens to me to this day. But touching on the anger side, a personal thing that I went through was and I talked about it before, was the major depression I went through, and last couple years. And now I'm good, and got over it last year pretty much, and again, we're never perfect, especially when you really understand mental health. It's an organ, you gotta take care of it. But I did struggle with anger, and I think me, we're very similar, Chance, where we do just get pissed, we snap all the time, and not, I'm not gonna go punch a wall, but
No, I definitely have done that.
Okay, fair. But the simplest things would just set me off, right? Literally, like you said about the pencil, but like inanimate object will just piss me. Like, why won't my password log in? And I'll just rage, And I was doing that for a while.
That's actually, I still do that.
Yeah,
You still do that.
it's fair. I've gotten a lot better though. You should have seen me a couple years ago. But that is something that I think is important when we discuss trying to reach out with mental health. Go and talk to your parents if you have them in your life and they're supportive, because the anger side I talked to my dad about, because I know that he struggled with some things in his life mentally, and I'm not going to get into it, but I knew that he had experience in trying to work on him, and so and so that was important to me, and that's as a guy and how a guy's brain works compared to a girl's. I would have never reached out to my mom about the specific things making me mad or depressed, because yes, she could help me and help me to work through it, but she doesn't obviously understand how a man's brain works. And that, I think, was very important in having my dad and that father figure person, because I could explain to him at a men's perspective and have him understand, listen, these are why I'm struggling with these things. And I know you get it because you're a man and you grew up. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I found really important. So if you do have that father figure, I think it's super important to utilize it. Don't be embarrassed. Go through with it. I kind of want to shift gears here, touching on the psychology side of things, Luke. I know that you have a degree in psychology. What is it? Just psychology, or it is
psychology and minor in child and family studies. So
there you go. You know your stuff
kind of right here.
Yeah. And I know it is fact, and I know there's been bazillions of studies that show that the most important thing in the upbringing of a kid is having a nuclear family with a mom and a dad. But even more, there are studies that show that the dad is actually the more, I don't want to step on any toes and piss anyone off, but it is the more important father figure to have in your life if you had one or the other. The mother is, again, the nurturing side of it, and usually your younger years, and then right around 13, 14, it actually switches, and the dad becomes the much more important person because they tend to focus on the bigger life lessons and moving on and growing up. So that is fact, and I kind of wanted to see what your opinion was and what you've learned because, again, I wasn't a psych major. I just, read studies. What did they say when they were teaching you, because I know you've learned about it, does create that long-term success, and can you touch on that?
So I don't think that they hit on it near as much as I wish that they would kind of go into that side of it. A lot of my undergrad was based on like the biology of the brain and how it works like individually in your body, and we don't really talk about like things like how much the nuclear family and things like that. And I think a lot of that is because it's a controversial topic. Like to come into a classroom and sit there and talk about a nuclear family, let's face it, most psych people are in psych because of a traumatic experience. So like,
is that true?
Probably like. Well, at least
I could see it, yeah. But
from my experience, 100%. Psych people are the craziest people I know. Like,
that's fair.
That's for me too.
Yeah,
honestly. So, but yeah, I think that it's kind of a controversial thing, and we do go into it a little bit. But you learn lessons from each side, and what you're talking about. Mothers are more important when you're younger. Fathers are probably more important as you age. Is true. And I think a lot of the reason we talk about like fatherless instead of like talking about motherless is mothers don't leave near as often, and so that's why it's not usually as big of an issue. Like, it's becoming more commonplace now to have a single father, but that's only really been in the last 20 years or so that's even, like, not a statistical anomaly completely to have a single father. Outside of, like, the death of a mother or something of that nature, but, like, just to have the mother leave and abandon her children, like, that's just not in their nature for the most part. So that's not as common. And father stuff is, you need a father figure to just, like you said, kind of teach those lessons and things of that nature. And I think where like people kind of miss the mark on it a little bit is that like when you're growing up and you're 13 years old and you're a boy, you need a father. If you're a 13-year-old girl, you also need a father. And if you're a 13-year-old boy, you like your mother's important in your life and you can obviously lean on her, but that's not near as important as having a father. Mm-hmm. For a girl, it's kind of even, like you basically, and this is more opinion than my degree. Than anything, but based on some research, some stuff like that. But yeah, fathers are important for both genders as compared to where, mothers are important for both genders, but way more important for girls to learn from because, let's face it, most guys, once you're like 15, you're like, I don't want to talk to my mom about that stuff. Obviously, I had to because I only had a mom, but for the most part, but like, I would say like you were talking about, most of your issues, you want to go to your dad. Like that's the person you really lean on. Yeah. And so, it's hard for moms too to kind of see from opposite perspectives, and for dads as well when you're going to a girl. So, that's just one thing that, from my experience, is what I would say on that.
Yeah. And Chance, would you say that? Would you say that going through high school up until when you were 16 and your dad passed, was he the person you were going to? Most of the time?
I would honestly say it was a good 50-50.
It was?
I moved to Peoria when I was 14, so I'm not originally from Peoria.
Okay.
And so when I was 14 to 16, I didn't see my dad a lot. Kept in touch. Obviously, it's not like he was gone.
Yeah.
All right. like went to my hometown, Mount Sterling. Which I'd say I think it was like 2 hours away from Peoria, so it's not even far. He kept in touch with everybody, me, my brother, sister, mother, and tried to do as much as he could to support all of us.
Because he was still working back in Mount Sterling?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, he was, and then throughout his last year being alive, he was retired. So he got at least a little bit of retirement life.
Good to know. He deserved it.
Oh, yeah. I think the first thing he did was buy a Harley. A big Harley guy. Huge Harley guy.
Really?
Harley jackets, the expensive, like $500, $600 jackets. Yes, dude. Big time. But yeah, he was there just as much as my mom. I just didn't see his face nearly as often in the last 2 years, which is no biggie because since I knew he was still there, I knew he's gonna be there.
Yeah, 100%. In college for both of you guys, well, I guess I'll touch on myself with this. So, throughout college, you know, it was a pretty easy ride for me. I didn't have that many issues. Most of it was probably relationships. And, you know, I would definitely reach out to my dad more on those things. And I always felt, or I never felt like it was a burden. And I think that was something that was also very important that I had with my dad and my mom is, you know, I never felt the going to them with even the most serious question or the most serious issue that I would be judged or anything like that. And there were a few. And I know my brother went through the same thing. You know, when I lived with him, we spoke about some stuff relationship-wise that you know, hard things that he had to come to my parents to, just like I did. And I think that that's also really important. And Luke, is there anything that you learned or studied in that regard of like the importance of like, I don't even know how to put it. The non-judgment and making sure that it's more understanding rather than just reprimanding if there's being mistakes being made or you have, you know, something really difficult to talk about. Did you ever learn about anything about running into those issues?
Well, kind of. I guess it's kind of a roundabout argument, but I think like when you're talking about that, I kind of think like positive reinforcement or punishment, and technically they're not punishing you by, you know, pushing judgment, but when you feel judged, it's the same as feeling punished essentially. Yeah. So there's a lot of evidence that positive reinforcement is so much more helpful for you know, when kids are going through stuff and when they need to learn lessons, and you know, when you're going to them with relationships, obviously some of those things they were probably like, that's stupid, why are you doing that? That's probably not how they worded it. I hope that's not how they worded it. But like that positive reinforcement, like, hey, you know, we've been through this, you know, I understand where you're coming from, this is what you should do, could have came across instead as, no, that's really dumb, why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. Do something else instead. And so the way that that's phrased, so it's in kind of a positive light and understanding light, would be really important to someone trying to learn those lessons. Interesting.
One thing I do, again, I also want to touch on is the idea that, again, not just an actual dad, but the father figure. It's important to have that through the rest of your life, you know, to always have that person to reach out to. And obviously the older you get, you know, your dad is more likely to pass and whatever, and you're not going to have your actual dad or whatever for everyone. And is there a time where it switches? Is there a time where, you know, when you have kids or when you get married that, you know, you have to adopt that? Kind of just want to know your guys' opinions. Do you think that there is a time where it's like, okay, now I got to be the father figure, and I'm not saying necessarily when you have kids, but to be that person for someone else and realizing you don't have that for you.
I'll hit this one first. This is kind of going to be a really deep answer, but I hit that at about like 13 with my sister, and so I kind of, you know, was in that situation where we kind of both did the same thing with Jason, to where like even though he was trying to be this great guy, was trying to be a father figure for us, we both kind of didn't really understand what happened in our parents' divorce, so we both kind of were just like, hey, you know, like, this isn't our dad, and so I kind of had to jump into that role a little bit with her, and I was not very good at it. I was, like I said, I was a brat. So I tried, but I was like, at the same time, I would also be like, she would say something, I'd be like, shut up, I don't want to talk to you right now. Just because I was always in a bad mood, and, you know, for lots of different reasons. And so, yeah, I felt like I made that switch, and then fortunately enough for me, I was able to kind of switch back with Jason when I kind of like was like, okay, like, obviously he's doing this for us, and like, I don't have to be this guy. But anytime I'm not with my family, I'm with, like, my father's side of the family, I still do feel like I'm the adult, I'm the dad, and so anytime I'm around my dad, like, if we go to dinner, I'll buy dinner. If we do anything, like, I'm the one that's in charge. And so it's just...
Does he accept that? Like, does he...
He doesn't have a choice.
That's fair.
And so...
is that you putting your foot down, or is that where he's just like, okay?
I mean, like, he just doesn't have a job.
Well, it's okay. Fair enough.
So, but I think one thing I want to hit on here, too, is kind of that and how that rubbed me as a kid, and just, like, really having such negative emotions, and, like, the anger you guys talked about. But I would definitely qualify it as hate. Like, I definitely hated my dad for a long time for putting me through that situation, and I think it affected a lot of my relationships, like you were talking about, to where, you know, I didn't know how to feel loved. This is, like, super deep, I'm sorry.
Hey,
but, like,
we knew it was going some direction.
It was gonna happen at some point.
Yeah.
So, like, I felt like when people loved me, like, I was always scared that, like, you know, it was gonna be like when I was a kid, and my dad loved me, and then, boom, decided I wasn't the most important thing in his life. That was alcohol.
Yeah.
And so, like, I really, really struggled with that for a long time, and I don't think I got over that until very recently. We kind of talked about that in our Heart to Heart. We talked about from Dubuque, where we kind of both learned way too much about each other's lives that day. But
we did.
Yeah, but that took a long time to just get over, like, and there was some, like, emotional abuse and stuff there too that, like, made that last a lot longer. But just really diving into your feelings, like, we kind of talked about this in our last episode too, the mental health one the first time. When you really dive into your feelings in, like, any situation, this is kind of what came to my head, that you dive into and you really learn from, regardless of how painful it was, like, that's helpful. Like, just, if you need to talk to somebody to get it out, do it. But, like, really, anything in your life where you're like, hey, you know, I have, you know, emotions that are definitely not unsettled at this point, like, go do that. Go figure out what is holding you back and keeping that anger inside of you. Like, you had your conversation with your mom, and, you know, made a move to do something about it.
Understanding of it.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
And so just really just make an effort for your mental health, like, because in a lot of these situations that people are fatherless or are motherless, I mean, for your sake, your dad died, and, you know, that's, like, something that you have to grasp, but your dad didn't choose to die. Like,
oh, exactly, yeah.
So, like,
right.
People where their parents left them, like, that's a whole nother level where, like, you were left. Somebody chose to leave you, and that's not really how it works. Like, that's, as a kid, that's how you feel.
But that's how you feel it happened. Yeah.
And so, just, like, really, like, go back and make sure, like, okay, did I really work through this emotion, or did I just, like, or dive it under the rug and act like it never happened? So I think that making sure that you do all those things to heal your mind, like you talk about all the time, you know, it's an organ, you got to take care of it as well, is extremely important to really maintaining healthy relationships and good mental health.
What I was going to say was, I think it was still when I was 16, and since my dad died at 16 years old, what was actually what I would do is I would go on my phone, call his phone, and so since obviously nobody would pick up, it'd go to his voicemail. All right, so I'd be able to hear his voice for a good few months.
Yeah.
All right, until all of that got completely canceled and then shut off.
Yeah.
And then one day, called it, said it, and it wasn't his voicemail. That's when it really hit me. I was like,
"Jeez,
fuck."
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
Real. Like through those months, the span of I don't even know how many months, 2 to 3. Like, I didn't want to believe it. I was like, something's not true. Something isn't real. There's no way he's actually dead. All right. Specifically, he died in a motorcycle crash, and a deer ran in front of him, and I believe I was told died on impact.
Yeah.
So he didn't like suffer, which I actually is nice for me to know.
It's great to know.
But yeah, so I now still have a pure hatred for deer.
I do know that.
I
do know
have
that.
hatred for deer, and they didn't even, nothing even happened like that.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine.
Oh, dude. I don't need to go on my descriptions and everything. I don't rant. But there's a good situation where I was going to a morning lift, and I hit a deer, and it just fucked up my front bumper.
Yep.
It was really messed up. And I'd go park in the parking lot. This is at like what, 5:15 a.m. So
Yep.
I can barely see. All right, and I'm going 40 miles an hour or so.
And this was right down University, right?
Lafayette.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a main drag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The speed limit's 40 on it.
Yeah.
All right. So I hit that deer good speed. Excuse me. I get out of my car after I park it right outside of the complex where our gym was at, and I see my bumper. I'm like, mother. Oh, dude, I was livid. I walk in that gym. I'm opening the door, all pissed off. People tried to talk to me. I was like,
Yep.
I don't want to.
I was your lift partner, and I remember that day.
Yep, you were right next to me.
No, I remember. This is a good story from my perspective. You
It
might
is,
still
it
be
is.
pissed, but I just remember
It is.
because we were lifting partners, and we lifted on the kind of the older guys' side of the gym, the guys who lifted more, just because we were
Yeah.
seniors. At the,
Me,
yeah,
you,
we-
and then one other rack were like the stronger ones.
yeah, and so I remember we were doing front squat or something, right, or RDLs or something.
We were doing something. We were doing hang cleans and some type of squat.
Yeah, and I just remember you were. I mean, we were always pretty close to where both of us, no matter the lift, the exercise, we wouldn't really having to change weight that much because we were pretty on par.
It was very nice.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you were just putting on so much weight, and it was a normal morning for me, but I was just like, "Geez, what did you take steroids today?" Like I was so confused, and I had to go to the bathroom to just like clear my head because you weren't talking. And I was just like, I don't want to piss this dude off. I feel like I'm pissing him off because I keep having to take weight off because you're like, put another plate on, and I'm like, oh my god. And I remember I
was putting up like 25 to 35 more pounds than like a usual.
yeah,
like,
and we were
set.
and we were doing high reps, high
Oh
intensity
yeah,
too.
it was 8 to 10 reps.
Yeah.
every time.
Yep. And I remember I went to the bathroom, and a friend of ours, Josh, came into the bathroom, and I was gone for a while, and we were both just like,
You were gone for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I was
that's
like,
over half the lift.
I know. We were like, dude, do you see what Chance is putting up today? And I was talking to Josh, and he was just like, yeah, he's pissed. He's like, we got to stay out of his way.
Because I think
That's
I
it.
told Josh, I was like, he was one of the few people. I think I told Josh and Samir, I was like, just fucking wreck my car and stupid ass deer.
Yeah, you were going off. You were telling me too, and after that, I was just like, all right, look, we're just gonna take this lift nice and slow. Yeah, like swear. And I just remember talking to him, and I'm like, dude, I'm scared. This man. So if you really want to hit a new max on any of your lifts, just trash a deer with your car.
Yep.
It'll piss you off enough.
I do not recommend that strategy.
Unless you're really into lifting and you got the money to fix a car.
Yeah. Maybe that's what all the Olympian lifters do.
I swear to God. They
Yeah.
have to.
Luke, in regards to, and that's a good way to actually segue here, is with the physical side of things. Something that was really important to my dad, and he's still around. It still is important, but was like being in shape and being outdoors and making sure that you are again taking care of your body and mind, very much so. Is that something that you never had, either of you guys? And especially you, because you know the psychology side of it. Is that something that you never ever got? Because that was something that I think I took for granted, but it also might not be very common that my dad made that to be such an important thing in my life. I think with a lot of people that might not be true, but I'm very thankful for it. It's great to have that kind of foundation of like, okay, these are really important things.
No, that's something that I definitely had growing up.
Really?
My dad was very into sports. He was a three-sport athlete in high school at a bigger school. So that was really where a lot of his focus led, and that's like basically if I wanted to get my dad's attention, I had to do something good at the sporting event that day. So being good at sports and like being like in shape and stuff was kind of like that was my way to still impress my dad, even though he wasn't there. And I kind of like, that was my mindset till I was like 12. And then at that point, I just really loved sports. So that it kind of just shifted to the point where it's like, all right, I'm doing this for me. But yeah, no, that was very heavily ingrained right off the rip. So
that's good. What about you, Chance?
My dad was also heavily into sports, but he wasn't to the point to where like I had to do something good for him to notice. Yeah. Thankfully,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Fair enough.
No, though his knowledge on swimming was significantly below par compared to his knowledge on other sports.
Yeah,
he could talk about basketball, and he never really cared to watch it at all.
Yeah.
All right, like if you tell him a player, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, he probably plays for whoever," but his main thing was football, and good old NASCAR.
All
right.
Why could I picture your dad as the biggest NASCAR? He drives a Harley. Yeah, I mean,
he was a big time racer. When he was younger, he actually used to race stock cars.
Really?
I swear to God, I was not even close to being alive at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why he was so into NASCAR, because I mean he lived a part or like a different version of that kind of life.
Yeah.
And so. But his knowledge in football was really good. Huge Cowboys fan. Huge.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Him and Vlad would get along.
Yeah.
Vlad, I'm sorry to name drop you again, but you're a Cowboys fan.
It's not even his name. And you said name drop. It's not even his name.
Yeah, well, anyone that knows him knows who he is. So.
That's fair. My sister's also a big Cowboys fan. But as it kind of goes...
What made you a Packers fan?
Nobody in my family liked the Bears. And the Rams were dick.
Yeah.
All right. And then the Rams moved. So I was like, you know what? I like cheese.
Yeah.
I saw people wearing cheese heads. I'm like, that's actually sick.
They do have a good fan base.
Well, when you're a kid, it's really simple to be like, I want like that.
Yeah. No, that's how I picked my team.
Exactly.
The Ravens, I literally did not have a team. I didn't want to be a Niners fan. And
it was during that Super Bowl, Niners and Ravens, I think, wasn't it?
For what?
When you were a kid, that's you chose because like everyone was rooting for.
No, I was a Ravens fan before then, probably 3-4 years before then. But I didn't want to be a Niners fan because everyone in my family, and I am a Niners fan. They're my probably.
I mean,
my
you're from
team.
California. It's hard to not be.
Yeah,
it's easy to not be a Bears fan.
And I didn't want to be a Patriots fan because first of all, they were the team during that time period, and
nobody likes them.
Yeah, nobody likes them, and we had from the Lowell Podunk High School in my hometown, we had a guy, Logan Mankins, who played on the Patriots during those years. So everyone in our hometown was a Patriots fan just because of him. So I was like, no, don't want to be. I want to be something else.
Yeah, I think top 3 most hated teams had to have been Patriots, Packers, and Bears.
Yeah, and then, so I picked it by getting a Happy Meal toy at Burger King that had a little mini jersey as the toy, and it was a Ravens jersey, and I was like, they got cool colors.
Black and purple.
Yep, and then I learned later on that Michael Phelps was a big Ravens fan and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, cool.
And that elite quarterback in Joe Flacco at the time. So.
Hey, he had the best playoff
that 1 year.
But what about for both you guys, and especially you, Chance, in college, once you were a D1 athlete, touch on that a little bit of like, were you missing anything? Were you missing the father figure that's in the sports world that's supportive? For me, it was my mom, actually, because my mom loved swimming. If you know my mom, she's got a problem. She is addicted to swimming. It's insane. And so, again, for me, my mom was that support because she knew so much, and my dad doesn't know much about swimming to where, obviously, he's learned more just because me and my brother did it growing up.
He's around it.
Yeah. But for you and you, Luke, because you did play ball in college, were you guys missing something there? Was there something where it's like, man, I really wish I could tell my dad about this?
Oh, God, yeah.
Was there?
Freshman year of college, right after conference, I'm dropping time like crazy. All right, if anybody knows swimming, right, I'm coming out of high school in the 200 breaststroke with a 219. All right?
Yards.
All right?
Hey.
To put in perspective for anybody that doesn't know, that's slow compared to my 100 breaststroke, which was a 58.
Which was fast.
Oh, yeah. 100 was great. 200, trash.
Yeah.
All right? I go to college, or mid-season meet, I'm doing the 200 breaststroke as an exhibition, all right, because I didn't know if I was going to be doing that or a different event. And I dropped from a 219 to a 213. And I'm like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You
that's
probably
a
would
good
have made
drop.
finals, I assume.
Not with 213.
Really?
That again, that was at mid-season.
Okay.
But then I go to conference, all right, and I go from a 58.1 seconds in the 100 breaststroke to a 55, getting a school record.
Snapped. Freshman
Right.
year, you got the school record? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Hey,
All right.
what was the school record?
It was a 55.5
okay.
or something like that.
Dang,
So
that's
not
sweet.
by much, but I got it. I
Yeah.
went 55.2.
Yeah.
Right? I was hype. My 200 breaststroke, I go from
And you still have it, right?
yeah.
You do?
Yep. And I will for a while.
You will for a while.
Subtle
unfortunately.
flex.
Yeah.
And then the tuner breaststroke, which I ended up did swim at conference, so I picked that as my third event. I go from a 213 to a 202.
And for anyone that knows, 202 is flying.
Quick.
Yeah.
Quick. Yeah, I think I was, in the tuner breaststroke, I was like 5th or 6th.
Jeez.
All right, in the 100 breaststroke, I got 4th.
And again,
The
this
amount
is-
of times I got 4th in the 100 breaststroke was very aggravating. But regardless, 17-second drop in a span of less than a year is actually ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, that is the equivalent of, put it in track terms, it would be like doing a 400 and you go
I would say 800, dropping
Yeah.
17 seconds on an 800. Yeah.
just flying. Crazy. I've never dropped like that in any event, so anyways. But getting back to the
Or if you
dad-
know lifting, it's like saying your max bench is 225 and then 6-7 months later you're benching 300.
Yeah, no.
Like it's just an obscene amount of time drop.
And so you were missing that, is what I'm getting to, is you didn't have that person to tell to. Obviously, you had Patty, your mom.
I got most improved swimmer, and then I got something else from like a team award.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't even tell. Like my mom was there. It was awesome to have her there.
Yeah.
All right, but like, man, fuck, I wish I could tell my dad about that shit.
Yeah.
He was huge into lifting too. He had big ass shoulders, big bencher. All right, dude. Like once I started to get big into lifting and stuff like that, I wish I could have told him that. I was like, Dad, I just hit 3 plates for a squat.
Yeah.
He would have been like, "Fuck yeah, dude, let's get it." Dude, he would
That is one
hype
thing
you
that's
up to the
real
max.
different about my dad. He will hype you up, and but he does it in his own way. He'll never like, oh, let's go, yeah.
Dude, yeah, he'll
just,
be like-
he'll just walk me through it now, and I'll be like, yeah, you know what, Dad? Even though you just said it at like 1 decibel, I am badass. That's right. That's right.
And he'll go up and be like, "You can do that easily. I mean, why aren't you just do it?"
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what my dad was. I was like, "I don't understand why you're saying you can't do something. Just do it."
Yep. No. What about you, Luke?
I would say maybe I quit after a year. I was not going to be anything in football. I was tiny. I was kind of fast, but like not like.
You could be in the
elite
NFL now, right?
Yeah.
fast. Maybe if I learned how to punt really well or long snap, if I like just.
Oh, there you
all
go.
the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
You'd still have to block.
You don't really have to block if you're a long snap.
Really?
Not if I just do punts. If I have to do field goals, then yeah, I got to block. But
That's right.
okay, but anyway.
All right, I'm playing.
Maybe just like the fact that like I would have had someone to go to and be like, should I stick this out or not? And I really think I made the right decision long term, but just having someone to go to that could have been like, maybe you should keep trying, maybe you should keep going at it, and wherever that advice led to where maybe I would have stuck with it longer or transferred out and went somewhere else instead.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I could have went to my mom or Jason with either of those things and been similar.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. For me, I think that one thing that was very important and that I did notice, that I think a lot of kids didn't, and Chance, you'll understand because I obviously swam with you, and I know, I mean, your mom was the team mom, so you had that support there. But there were a lot of people on our team that they didn't have that support. Their parents weren't showing up at every meet, you know, even when they lived an hour away. Like for me, okay, I was 28 hours away from home.
You're literally on the other side of the country.
Yeah. And so obviously they're not going to come to every, whatever.
Hard.
But they came to all my big meets. They came to my mid-seasons and they
Mid-season
came
conference.
to conference every single year. And that I think is really important. And it's something that I value, and I think that other people should too, is when you do have that support. Like they would come across the country to come and watch me swim for a total of, again, I was a distance swimmer, which helped because they got to see a lot.
They got to see a lot of swimming from
they
you.
did.
Not much from me. I
But
was doing
regardless,
short
it was
stuff.
probably at a most 25 minutes in a span of 4 days. They got to see me compete for 25 minutes.
You
That's
actually partaking in your events.
Exactly. And
Combined.
yeah. Exactly.
That's not exactly fair to your mom because she probably enjoyed watching every single second of everybody swimming.
That's true. And I know she was going crazy up there in the stands.
Yeah, but I know your dad was completely silent, but he was videoing the whole thing.
No, he's taking plenty of
You got
pictures.
that?
100%. No, that one year I didn't even know he was taking pictures. And again, this touches on that support thing that I think is really important that people should understand and value. And I think that we did not have a lot of people on our team that had that support, and even the ones that didn't value it. Because the way I saw it, since I was probably the farthest person away from home, definitely maybe some of the kids in Florida, but I still think I was farther. I was able to see that effort, and like even with parents coming an hour and a half away, it's like they are making that effort, and I think it is something important to value. But like with my dad, I mean, he couldn't partake in the knowledge of swimming as much as my mom could. So what he did, he brought his big ass camera and he took pictures of everyone that I got to share with the whole team, and everyone loved it because it was great photography.
It was awesome.
And so
He took pictures of not just you, everybody.
every single person on the team, yeah. And then all of a sudden everyone's posting them and stuff. It was cool to see.
Yeah,
They're
sweet.
like, oh yeah, is your dad coming to the next meet? I'm like, yeah, conference in 6 months, sure.
He was literally like the Western swim team's media
Yeah, literally.
by one dude.
Yeah, and so I think that is something that is very important for like people, especially in athletics, is really understand. Not only are your parents paying a lot of money, most likely, which my parents did. I mean, especially in high school,
It's not a cheap sport.
not and
Not
really,
not saying any sports are really ever cheap, but like
No sports are cheap if
Exactly.
you are getting the right stuff and everything.
exactly.
Exactly. If you are getting everything possible for you to be the best that
Yeah.
you can possibly be,
100%.
it's going to be a lot of money.
No, and it's just I hated seeing the people that didn't value it. Like, oh God, my mom's gonna be here, so I can't come and party. So we're gonna go out and get dinner. I'm like, you're complaining about that? Like, I haven't seen my parents in 8 months. You know, it was little things like that would kind of piss me off.
I'm the exact same way. I had an ex who would occasionally be like, God, I can't stand when my dad sometimes, and I'm just like, I'm not the person you want to be having this conversation with.
Yeah, really not. Like, did you ever say that? Or how would you approach that?
No, 100%. I was like, you do understand who you're talking to about this, right? She's like, yeah, I'm talking to my boyfriend. I'm just like, no, think about it. I don't have a goddamn dad, and you're complaining about your dad
being in your life.
Literally. Oh, it infuriated me. I just hung up after that first conversation of it. I was like, nah.
I can't even. That would actually
Not having it.
I don't think you overreacted there. You know, and you overreact quite a lot.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. No, but seriously though, I think that that's not an overreaction in my opinion at all, 100%. But people don't know their place. People don't. Man, the amount of people that I know,
Everything's given to them, and then they think that once they don't get something.
Yep. And that even touches on something that
That's
I would love to talk
separate.
about.
Yeah.
Life isn't easy and life is not fair, and that is something very important that, and I would say one of the top things that my dad taught me that I value is that life is not fair, and you have to work for what you get. You know, I wasn't I grew up comfortably, but man, I grew up in a situation that the goals that I had for college and swimming and extracurriculars were not easy to come by, and I had to put in a lot of work to make them happen. And that's something that he instilled in that, and my mom, in a huge amount. And I see people that complain when they just have it so easy, in my opinion. And again, everyone has their own situation, but
I've known rich people that complain about the parents, and I'm like, dude, I've never been rich in my entire life. Just shut up.
yeah, yep, I agree.
I don't say that directly if I don't know the person well enough.
Yep.
But it's what's in my head.
Yep. The one thing that my grandfather on my dad's side actually, and I never had a granddad on my mom's side. He died just before I was born, I believe. Very young. He was, I think, in his 50s. You know, smoker, drinker.
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah. And so the only grandpa I had really was my dad's dad, who's still with us too, and he's great. He just turned 92. Him and my grandma, who's also still alive, have been married for 69 years. And this coming summer, they will be married for 70 years. And they're still doing great. They're still very healthy and everything. And Pray for him all the time.
Wish more people could say that.
I know, but 70 years. And so I want to talk to him more about those kind of like, how do you make that work for 70 years? I can't imagine. And so he would be a great person to sit down and talk to, even on a podcast. But one thing that he told me that I think about all the time is he literally said to me, and it's the one lesson that if I had to take one thing from him, it literally was just said, he told me, life's not easy. Get over it. He literally said that. And I was maybe 10, I was young. And I'm thinking to myself, like, great. Yeah, what? It's like, thanks.
Thanks for the great advice.
Yeah,
and now you're thinking, dang, that was great advice.
It is. And I think about it all the time. Whenever I'm struggling with whatever in my life, professionally, in work or friends, relationships, mental health, whatever, life's not easy. Life is not easy. And until you're able to grasp that, again, that's one of the best fatherly advice I've ever gotten. Just get over it. Deal with it. Figure it out. Stop complaining and, level up. So.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a good place to close this one out and just wrap it up. I know that was pretty intense for all of you guys listening. Chance, thanks for coming on and really opening up. Obviously, we got to some stuff that'll probably, touch to a lot of people in their experience and things like that. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And if you made it to the end,
we apologize.